everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Oner podcast, the podcast where we break down and review films all in one big, long, unbroken take. I'm Austin Archer, and with me, as always, is my childhood next-door neighbor and lifelong best friend,
Cramer, England.
We're in the same state. We're in Southern Utah, or Southern California.
Yes, we are in Southern California. We saw this movie together.
Mm-hmm. I think this is a first on the podcast
It is. Yeah.
that we saw a movie together. Like old times. Your brother was there.
Yep.
It was
Chandler
great.
was there. Yeah, it was a ton of fun. It was great. It was
This
nice to get
reminded me
together
of
and actually see it.
we went and saw a lot of movies together as kids, and this
Yes.
reminded me. I was like, this makes me feel like I'm back. I'm going to watch The Mask or something, or Space Jam, or
Yeah. There's something about seeing a movie with friends that makes it even better, because like if you're feeling the same thing, like you can feel it, and you can kind of like look at each other and like, what the heck, Anyway, it makes it a more fun experience when you go to the movies with people who are your friends, or or your family, or whatever. It always makes it a better experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's spring break. We got a lot of Utahns out here in SoCal.
Yes.
Did you guys go to Disneyland yesterday?
We did. We went on Tuesday, and there were I saw many BYU shirts and Utah shirts. So
I'm sure I see those even when it's not spring break.
Oh yeah.
There's always a lot of people from Utah at Disneyland on any given day.
Yes.
The Utah people do enjoy a little 10-hour drive out to Anaheim to go to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Did you guys have fun?
We did. We loved it. It was, man, our feet were hurting really bad though, and our kids were very, very tired. But it was so fun. It was a lot of fun. It was great.
I'm going to Universal tomorrow with my brother's family, and luckily Universal is one of those parks that's only open till 6 p.m. So we can only do so much, but it's also like, that's just how big that park is. It's like, there's no reason for it to be a 12-hour experience. It's just, it doesn't have 12 hours worth of attractions. Anyway, we went and watched A24's Death of a Unicorn. We decided to watch this movie because we are trying on this channel and on this podcast to champion original cinema, new ideas, original voices. I love companies like A24 for doing this, for giving new directors a chance. This is a first-time director. It's a writer-director. It seems like, like his original concept. It's produced by Ari Aster. So it's got a lot of people kind of in that camp of like A24 writer-directors supporting this new writer-director. It reminds me of, was it last year or the year before that they did Dream Scenario, that was also a debut film from a first-time writer-director. And I love A24 for taking swings like this and taking risks on new voices. And
the best thing about I totally agree, A24 takes chances. The nice thing that's going on with A24 is they very much have what all the other studios and everybody else has tried to get, who is not Disney. Because if you go to see like, oh, it's a Disney movie, somebody says, oh, okay, I know it's a family friendly movie, it's going to be uplifting, usually you get that point. Now if you're saying, oh, I'm going to go see an A24 movie, everybody knows, oh, okay, it's an original movie, very, very likely it's original. It's going to be a little bit offbeat. It's going to be, they're going to take some big swings, and they're going to take some chances, right? So A24 has that, and you can't really say, oh, I'm going to go see a Lionsgate movie. If you said that to somebody, they'd be like, what? Like, what are you talking about?
I think the new, well, they're not new, but I feel like the company right now that's reminding me the most of A24, that's sort of mirroring the A24 playbook is Neon. And I really like what Neon's been doing the last 3 or 4 years. I feel like Neon's been around longer than that, but I feel like the last few years they've started to mirror that playbook of like giving new voices a shot. And Neon is distributing Chris Stuckman's movie. Chris Stuckman, who's I don't know if you know, he's a YouTube movie reviewer, and they picked up his film. And I like production companies that are willing to give first-time directors, writer-directors a shot at doing something original and doing something new and doing something different.
Yeah, and it's worked really. Yeah, and I was gonna say Neon as well. Neon and A24, they both, and Neon. Let's see, Neon distributed. Did they distribute Oner?
Oner? They just won Best Picture.
So they just won Best Picture. They're two companies that everybody is really starting to notice. because of
A24 has
what the
been A24 has been racking up Oscars
yeah,
for like 12, 13 years now,
yeah,
since Moonlight, and obviously they had The Brutalist this last year
yeah,
too, and they were in
yeah.
that race. I feel like the film that they should have been promoting is Sing Sing. I'll never shut up about it. I'll never stop talking about it. But they decided to go with The Brutalist, and
Yeah,
that's fine. But both movies were distributed by A24. Uh,
yep,
yeah, so lots of positive things to say about production companies that are willing to
yes,
take a chance on new directors. I feel like with the industry and the state that it's in, with all of these massive movies,
yeah, yeah,
$300 million movies, $320 million movies like Snow White that aren't
yeah,
doing well for these big studios, or 300, I guess, no, the $320 million one that I'm thinking of is The Electric State, that
right, right,
Netflix spent $320 million giving the
yeah.
Russo brothers, making a movie that's not even going to be in theaters. And the model doesn't really seem to make sense economically.
I don't get it.
I've felt for a while now, like I was really happy that Sean Baker won, that kind of swept the Oscars, because I feel like what that's indicative of is the industry saying the way out of this predicament is to invest in indie filmmakers,
Right.
to invest in filmmakers who are writing original screenplays and telling original stories.
Yep.
And you can, I mean, The Brutalist was made for $10 million. Honora had a budget of like 6.5. I do think that it came out in the news that Neon spent $18 million
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
on the Oscar campaign. So,
Yep.
but even still, I mean, I'd say that their investment paid off to kind of
Yep.
champion indie cinema in this way. But the
It
film itself got made for a very reasonable budget.
yeah,
And
and this movie was made for about 15 million, it looks like. And this is before we even get into the scores, I'm gonna say this is a movie that you should go out and see in the theater.
mhm,
Go like it's not doing that great in the box office, but really you should go out and see it because it was good enough to see it in the theater, and
yeah.
it's a good enough time to do that. We'll get into how we feel about it and the pitfalls that it has. But if you know what you're expecting, this was a great time at the theater. I mean, that's how I felt. Did you feel like that too?
I had a good time. I think I really enjoyed being there with you and Chandler. I
Yeah.
think my overall thing that I'm going to echo what you just said. Go see this movie,
Yeah.
formulate your own opinion, similar to like our Mickey 17 review. Like
Yeah.
go see Mickey 17.
Yeah.
Go see uh, go see original stories in the theater. Go support movies like this. Make up your own mind, because you might absolutely love Death of a Unicorn. Me personally, I highly anticipated this film from its trailer. I thought, ooh,
Yeah.
this looks like another just like really fun, really weird, really offbeat A24 joint. And my overall kind of generalized note for Death of a Unicorn, for me, subjectively, is that I wanted the movie to be weirder.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
wanted the
Yeah.
movie to take even more risks. I wanted the movie to surprise me more. I found the narrative, the plot of the film to be kind of like, if you've watched the trailer, it's pretty much that. It's
Yeah.
pretty straightforward. Like what you see in the trailer is the movie doesn't have many surprises outside of what's shown. So I think we can just sort of jump into a plot, sort
Yeah.
of quick breakdown.
Yeah. Sure.
Uh, Basically, it's like the movie begins and Paul Rudd and his daughter, Jenna Ortega, who
Mhm.
plays Ridley, which I
Yeah.
also thought,
Really.
I wonder, did you think this? I thought this later on. I didn't think it in the moment, but I thought it going home, that Ridley is probably a reference to Ridley Scott because of all of his
Yes.
unicorn imagery in his films. So there's like
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I guess, Chandler actually looked up a bunch of stuff on it too, and he said there's also a lot of references to Alien, right?
Mm,
Like, just kind of the overall structure and things like that, and so I that when he said, "Oh, Ridley," that was the first thing that popped into my mind
mhm.
was Ridley Scott, Alien, Ripley, even though it's not,
Isn't it
the same.
wild that Ridley Scott's first big, like, movie that put him on the map, his main character's name was Ripley and his
I
name's
know.
Ridley?
Yeah, it's a little strange.
It's like if I
Yeah.
had a character in a movie named Boston, to be like, "Come on, man." Like like
Now that's gotta be
like
your main character now if you make it. Yep.
but, yeah,
No.
I did on the way home, I was like, "Oh, it's probably 'cause, like, the unicorns in Legend and the unicorns
Yeah,
in Blade
yeah,
Runner," and yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I think it's still yeah, I think it all fits. I think that's all kinda that way.
But also, I think this is another thing where I just kind of like, to me, it's like it's thin. That I
Yeah,
think that there's no reason outside of maybe this writer director, just his favorite director is Ridley Scott, and he just wanted to do and that's totally
yeah,
cool and totally fine.
yeah.
but to me, it doesn't seem to go much deeper than that. And that's sort of
Yeah.
my, again,
Yeah.
generalized note is I wanted this
Yeah.
film to find a deeper layer. And I felt like the overall it was kind of a surface level presentation of what was promised by the trailer. Not
Yes.
that that's bad. It was,
No,
yeah.
but I think you're totally right, and that is the thing that I agree with you on. I wish this would have kind of pushed the limits a little bit more.
Mhm.
But the opening I did think was pretty great because they're on a plane,
Mhm.
and Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega are there, and Jenna Ortega puts her head on Paul Rudd's shoulder, and you
Mhm.
could tell that this means a lot to him. You could tell it's obviously father daughter, and he's like, oh, he's so happy that she's there, and then he drops like a paper and he's trying to get it, he's like trying to get it with his foot, and then he just decides to like reach out and grab the paper, and her head falls and she smacks her head on the armrest. And I
Yeah.
thought that was like a great little way to like show their relationship. Like he's really wanting her to, but he's messing it up, right?
Well,
And
yeah,
she
he
smacks her head. And so I was like, oh, that's a great way to kind of tell their relationship just by showing us.
well, and he desires closeness with his daughter, but
Yes,
also the thing that pulls him away is it's work papers. It's papers,
exactly.
and he's the whole movie is kind of this tug of war between Paul Rudd's career and his daughter.
Yes.
And that's, and again, this is why, like, again, my sort of generalized, like, my letterboxed review would be like the plot of this movie. And I said this right after we saw it. I said, this reminds me of a Disney Channel original movie plot
Yes.
with
Yeah.
just more gore and more
Yeah.
F words. So
Yeah.
if you took a script for a Disney Channel original movie called like Dad hit a unicorn with his car, like it would be this movie with like because even like the bad characters,
Yeah.
like they're that thinly written, and it's just like they just pepper in some F words and they have some blood and guts. And I was like, yeah, I kind of wish, because even this, like the whole thing of like, well, is dad going to pay attention to me, his daughter, or is he just going to be too busy working? I was
Yeah.
like, that's a
Yeah.
little, and it's that the entire movie. It's just sort of like, well, dad, are you going to talk to me or are you going to be busy with work? And it's just
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
I kind of was like, is there any other dimension to this relationship? Because I agree,
Yeah.
it sets up the tone really quick, but then the movie, that's all the movie has to say about these two
Yeah.
characters is
Yeah.
dad is torn between work and daughter.
Yeah.
And
I
yeah.
think it also I think it also could have worked that I think that level was fine if
Mhm.
everything else would have been heightened. But
Sure.
you're totally right. Everything else is kind of surface level, and
Mhm.
it doesn't really it doesn't pull out anything new or anything more than that. And I think if that relationship would have stayed the same, but everything else kind of would have been heightened, it would have made it better. But it does at least set it up really effectively.
Yeah, and so they are in, like, Vancouver or something. They're somewhere
Yeah,
in
they're in
Canada.
Canada.
It's very obvious from you hear which the pilot to me sounded like Bob Odenkirk. I wanna look up the credit because I was like, I could see him doing, like, a cameo as, like, a Canadian comedian, but it sounded like his voice as the pilot, and he's very clearly has a Canadian accent, and he's
Mhm.
welcoming everyone to Canada, but they're somewhere, like Banff or somewhere like that that's really
Yeah,
beautiful and scenic. And they're visiting the people that Paul Rudd works for, who are pharmaceutical moguls. They're
yeah,
pharmaceutical billionaires, and they live on this kind of nature preserve. And we go to them, Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega driving in their car, their rental car, through this really beautiful nature preserve. And
yeah, and she has got acne all over her
yep,
face. Paul Rudd has got allergies,
yeah.
and
Mhm.
yeah, and they're
And
driving.
again, we're doing stuff in the car that's like, "Ah, dad, are you just gonna be," they're like, and being like, "Oh, thanks
Yeah.
for joining me on this trip." And she's like, "Not like I had much choice, are you just gonna be working the whole time?" And we're just kinda doing like, it's obvious that there's sort of a tension between father and daughter. Again, I don't mean to be too overly negative because it all works fine.
Yeah,
It just,
yeah,
it just was kind of like, I
yeah,
felt like it's a little decom. It's a little Disney Channel original movie. It's a little,
yeah, yeah,
but anyway, as you've seen in the trailer, what happens on this road on the way to his boss's house is a unicorn steps out into the street. And while they're sort of talking and he's not paying attention, he's like blowing his nose or something, and he hits
yeah,
the unicorn with his car. And we go and see the unicorn, and
yeah, and
yeah.
they're looking at it, there's, like, purple blood coming out, and,
Mhm.
I mean, the main thing that happens is Jenna Ortega or well, Paul Rudd is gonna put it out of its misery And then somehow Jenna Ortega looks at it and she touches the horn and she starts seeing like it looks like space, but she's obviously having an experience with this horse. And then Paul Rudd sees that and starts smacking the horse in the face with the
With the
tire
tie, yeah,
iron,
yeah.
and the blood gets all over both of them.
Yeah,
And
in kind of the way that you would, if you hit a deer, you do a mercy killing, you try to put
yeah,
the
yeah,
animal out of its misery. That's what Paul Rudd's doing with the tire iron. But also it's like they have a moment where they're both kind of like, what are we looking at here? Because it's very
yeah,
clearly unicorn. I will say this about this movie too. I don't know how you felt about this, but in the trailers, we never get a good look at the animal. The
yeah,
movie shows it pretty much right away when they come up. It's like, oh, there it
yeah,
is. And these things are pretty much CGI the entire movie,
yeah,
these unicorns. And
yeah.
again, we talked about this movie was made for $15 million. Me personally, I'm not stoked on how these things look. They look
No,
not great. They look,
no, they didn't
yeah,
look great. And that was the biggest thing throughout the whole movie. They didn't look great, but I liked their horns. Their
yeah,
horns were at least a little bit different. Like the one, I guess it was the dad
yeah,
unicorn. His horn was pretty gnarly, and the mom unicorn was pretty ornate and
yeah.
also a very good killing weapon.
Yeah, I think their
So
horns were probably the coolest
yeah,
aspect of their character design, but the
and
yeah, but
and their
or
teeth were more fang. They were more
mhm,
fang. They weren't like a horse as much. They had bigger mouths so that they could show off their fangs. Now they didn't look great, but I forgave it because I liked seeing them every time on the screen, like
yeah.
what they were doing. But yeah, it definitely didn't look good. It didn't look like it was great
Yeah, right
CGI.
as soon as we saw it, because it's like from the trailer, you're just like, "Oh, I wonder what the unicorn looks like," and then you see it right away, and it's like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah,
It's
yeah, yeah.
it's, you're like,
Totally.
"Okay, so that's what that okay, alright, okay," and again, I was like, "This is about the level of CGI I would expect from a
Yeah,
Disney Plus, Disney Channel movie about unicorns." I
yeah,
think they would
yeah,
look like that, and so, whatever, the movie, $15 million budget and,
yeah.
uh it's fine.
Yeah.
We live in an age where digital animators are overworked, and I never want to like crap on their work because
No, yeah,
those people work really hard. And
yeah,
uh, but anyway, they yeah, she has this vision that sort of looks like she's going into like the Doctor Strange like cosmos, or
yeah,
it
yeah,
reminded me, honestly. She talks later in the movie about how she felt like she was in a river, and it
yeah.
reminded me of what people have conveyed to me about ayahuasca, about
Okay.
doing an ayahuasca ceremony, and they say that they
Mhm.
sort of get caught up in this river where they're taken to where, a lot of people feel like they're taken to, like, the realm of
Yeah.
creation, like,
Yeah,
where the
and that's what she
universe.
says. Yeah,
Yeah.
like, I feel like that's where we were being created or something. Yeah, yeah,
I
totally.
genuinely felt I like the writer director of this movie probably did ayahuasca or like DMT or something, and then
Right,
wrote
right.
this about what he saw on DMT or on ayahuasca. It felt like that. But and that's, to me, honestly, that's probably the most intriguing level of this story that I could
Yeah.
have used more of. I wanted more of the what are the mystical properties of these
Yeah,
creatures, and how do
yeah,
they affect the plot?
yeah.
You know,
It
um,
would have been nice to have, I mean, she is the one, Jenna Ortega is the one who kind of, like, researches them and says, like, some of the things, but actually would have been it might have been cooler to have somebody who was a unicorn specialist
mhm.
who could kind of like guide us along in what's going on and what they can and can't do. Because then you could really like, oh, they have these crazy magical powers where they can do X, Y, and Z, and
Or just if her character had just
yeah,
been able
yeah,
to communicate what she had learned more. Every time it would be a scene where
yes,
she was
yeah,
where they'd be like, "You have the floor, young lady. Tell us what you've learned in your research."
yeah,
They did that thing where she couldn't talk. She'd be like, "Well, I looked up and it kinda it looks like they might," and I just was I
yeah,
that's a peeve of mine in screenplays where I'm just like,
yeah,
"Just say it." And the
yeah,
other characters are all going, "Okay, well, it doesn't sound like you've actually learned anything." And I'm like,
yeah,
okay, but and then the movie never actually really tells us what she, and so I just would kind of prefer it to be like, "Hey, just have her go, in my research, it looks like they can do this, this, and this," and,
yeah, yeah,
and just say it.
yeah,
And so then we can kind of get on with the movie
yeah,
doing that. And that's a thing we'll come up against later on, is that this movie
yeah.
stalls a lot. It has,
Oh yeah, yeah. That was my biggest problem. But yeah,
yeah.
I mean, after this, they kill the unicorn. He puts it in the car, and they go to the house, and he's basically like, "Don't say anything. we're just gonna get through this, and then I'll bury it in the woods in the evening, in the nighttime when everybody's asleep.
This is another thing that I just personally I was like, "Why?" I don't
Yeah, I know.
he's
Yeah,
so
yeah,
nervous about making a
yeah,
good impression with at work, but I don't they're all mad at him for being late. They show up and everyone's like, "Why are
yeah,
you like an hour late?" And I would think you would just get out of the car and go, "Guys, I know I'm late. I'm so sorry, but I have to show you what's in my trunk." I
yeah,
just think
yeah.
I don't get the
I
I don't
think
yeah.
Yeah, I agree, but I also think it's a wilderness preserve, and I think he thought, "Oh, crap, if I just killed an animal that's on their wilderness preserve, like, how's that gonna make me look?" Again, pretty thin, but I also yeah, like, "Guys, what did I just hit?" Because it does come out eventually.
Yeah, I think if you hit a deer or you hit a moose on the wilderness
Uh,
or like a little bear cub or something, I can see going like, "Hey, I don't want them to find out that I killed one of
yes,
their."
yes, but it's
For
a unicorn.
but it's a unicorn, and so I just it feels forced. It feels like it's like the screenplay needs him to
Yes,
hide
yeah.
it so that they can have
It
this kind of thing where Jenna Ortega's going, "Dad, the car,"
yeah,
and they're
yeah.
doing
It's
that
very
whole bit.
Disney Channel. Yeah,
Exactly, and
yeah,
I just kind of think, like, I think if you hit a unicorn, you show up and go, "Sorry, we're late, but I need to show you guys something,"
yeah,
and
yeah,
then the movie can kind of get going, but it feels
yeah,
like this screenplay needs to inject a lot of things to artificially sort of I felt
yeah.
like it was, like, padding the runtime of it, and yeah.
Yeah, it did, and it honestly I mean, but after this is where they kind of introduce the 3, family members,
Mhm.
which are Odell, played by Richard E. Grant, and then Belinda, played by Taya Leone, and then, Shepard, played by Will Poulter, which I thought Will Poulter was hilarious in this movie.
Of the
I
3
actually
of them, I think Will Poulter has the most to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually like all 3 of them. They all
Mhm.
kind of had their it would have been nice to see them, again, do a little bit more, right? Like, kind of play
I
those a little bit more.
From the trailers, I was like, "Ooh, they look fun."
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Taya Leone looks like she's having a lot of fun in this role,
Yeah.
looks like she's gonna chew up the scenery, and I just kinda felt like the screenplay, it's a little Disney Channel, it's a little
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
there just wasn't a lot of dimension to these characters. What you need to know about them is they are rich and they are bad,
Yeah.
and
That's about it.
they're self-obsessed, they're vapid, and
Yeah.
I think that there's a way to write characters like, I think Mike White, who writes The White Lotus for HBO,
Right, right.
does a fantastic job of writing these kinds of characters, these, like,
Mhm.
waspy, billionaire, disconnected,
Right.
you know, characters, and I I just kinda felt like these characters in this movie were just it just seemed like every time they opened their mouth, they were like, "Well, why would we care about anyone but ourselves?" And it was just sort of
Yeah,
every
yeah.
and I was like, "Man, if there's a I wish there was or maybe a way to make it seem to make me as the audience think that there's more to them, and then later on have them reveal like, 'No, I tricked you,' like, well,
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know,
I thought that that's what they were setting up, but they never did it because they should have been like more they should have been more like, "Oh, we care so much about everybody. We care." But it never was pushed enough to where it was made into a joke where the reveal happens and they only care about
Yeah,
themselves.
I
That
think
would
the
have been better.
movie exactly, I think the movie needs to make me believe that
Yeah.
what's revealed is they go to this house, where his bosses live. Jenna Ortega goes into the bathroom while they're hiding the unicorn from them for some reason,
Mhm.
and she wipes her face off with this towel that has unicorn blood on it, and when she rubs it into her acne heals. And
Yeah.
then also we see Paul Rudd, who's been using glasses in the movie. He notices glasses, it's kind of the Spider-Man thing, like Tobey
Yeah,
Maguire,
yeah.
like, "Oh, my
Yeah.
glasses, don't work anymore. My
Yeah.
eyes are
They've been
healed."
healed.
And then
Yeah.
he notices that his allergies are gone once he sees his daughter's face, and he's like, "What happened to your acne?" And
Mhm.
they start to realize, "Oh, the blood of the unicorn is."
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and right so when he goes and meets everybody, we find out that Richard E. Grant is dying of
uh-huh,
cancer. He's tried everything and he's basically he has Paul Rudd there because Paul Rudd is a lawyer and he's gonna kind of like take care of his family after all this and kind of like he wants to be partners in all this. And then we find out, oh, the acne's gone and his eyes are healed. So then they go outside, the horse, the baby
The unicorn
unicorn,
comes back to life because it's sort of like a
like,
Deadpool thing where
yeah,
because the blood of the unicorn has healing properties, even when it dies, and I think it was dead, like, I think Paul
yeah,
Rudd beat it
yeah,
to death, but its blood, it sort of self-heals. This is an animal that, like
yes,
Wolverine or like Deadpool, can self-heal its own wounds and bring itself back to life. So, it comes back to life, it breaks out of their car in this big dramatic way,
yeah,
and the security team at that is hired by this family shoots it in the head, kills it again.
yep,
So the unicorn is dead once again, and now they're all looking at it, realizing, oh my god, there's a unicorn here,
yeah,
and that's when they start talking about how the blood has fixed her acne, it fixed Paul Rudd's allergies, and immediately his boss with cancer, Richard E. Lee, goes, "Oh, well, we got to hook me up to an IV and get some of this blood in me. If I'm going to die anyway, I might as well take a
yeah.
shot at the magical unicorn blood." And wouldn't you know it, it cures his cancer
Well, and
you know,
it's not so much the blood. The blood is helping, but then they find out that the
yeah,
horn is like still alive. Like they're
yeah.
testing it and it's like still alive, but they take shavings off of it, and then that's what really like cures his cancer, and that will come up later.
Did any part of you, when they talked about how they said the horn is actually more like an organ, did any part of you start to think, is the horn some kind of like sexual organ?
I didn't,
I
but
did, mostly because of the line from the trailer that I knew was coming up where Téa Leoni goes, "That horn was rather girthsome."
yeah,
And I was like, "Oh, are they trying to make an inference here that that the unicorn's horn is somehow it's
right.
like
It's like
life force?"
right. I
But
mean, it could, but they never really go into it that much. Yeah,
again, that's one of my things about this movie is I'm just like, I kinda want more unexpected, more weirdness.
yeah,
I want the screenplay to t take what I think I know about unicorns
yes,
and
and
flip it more.
yeah,
And there's, they're like, it's not nothing. It's like unicorns have magical blood that heals cancer and that heals people. And
yeah,
also, if you grind their horn into dust and take the dust, it's like this amazing miracle drug.
yeah,
And that the horn is like the source of their power. But I figure that anyway. I
yeah,
kind of just
yeah,
want the movie to get weirder on me,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I want that too. Make their magic. I mean, you can like you said, we get that. We get that with unicorn's blood. It's gonna make it. It's gonna heal it. But that's all. There's
Yeah,
nothing else beyond that. Like, should they breathe fire? Should they like Could they? I don't know. There's something else that they need to add to it to
right.
make it even more. But that was all. That was all that they did.
Well, so yeah, I mean, once and this is again where the screenplay I think with these rich characters could be once they do find out that this unicorn horn and blood is kind of this miracle drug. Since they're in pharmaceuticals, they're immediately like, okay, well, we need to
Yeah.
figure out a way to replicate this compound and to mass produce it. And they're trying, and I think that they could have sold it to us, the audience, that they're sincere, that, oh, we've just found a drug that can cure everything. And
Uh-huh.
even though we're going to obviously be very wealthy, we're also going to save a lot of lives and
Yeah.
save, but I just never bought it, and especially since the movie says pretty much the scientists that they have working on the unicorn horn say there's no way to replicate this compound. It's a one of a kind thing. And so pretty much immediately the rich people go, "Cool, well then we'll just call all of our rich friends and see who wants it. It's a limited supply and we'll
Mhm.
just sell off the limited supply that we have for like several $1 billion." And
Yeah. Yeah.
and we'll just call all of our billionaire friends and be like, "You want a drug that cures everything?
Yeah.
We've got," and
Yeah, that's basically what they do because it's a limited supply, like, they
we
can't
can't
get it.
mass produce it, so it's like we might as well
No.
just call the wealthiest and I
Yeah,
think that that would have been an interesting twist to put in somewhere later where it's like, "Oh, Jenna Ortega is willing to go along with it because," and Paul Rudd maybe convinces her like, "Hey, we can save a lot of lives." And maybe even we,
yeah,
the audience, go, "Yeah, okay." But later on, we find out that they knew all along they couldn't replicate it and they were just planning on, it's
yeah,
gotta be
yeah,
some kind of thing that I don't know, that
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and I mean, at this point, this is when Jenna Ortega starts studying the unicorn lore, and, like, there are these tapestries that tell this story about what they do with unicorns. Like, it was an old story that was like a folklore tale, and she basically was like, well, this probably was true at some point. Everybody thought that the stories just got embellished and all that, but this tapestry basically tells what's going to happen the rest of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because she's like, they basically say there's only one fair maiden who can tame them, because she's pure in heart, right? And that was like, immediately I was like, okay, so that's Jenna Ortega, and there's
Obviously.
nothing, yeah, there's nothing more to that, which honestly was fine, but
Well, the story that she reads pretty much immediately on these tapestries, like you said, is the story for the rest of the movie. There's no,
yeah,
and I think that what this movie could have, at the very least, done is done something like, like The Ring. We talked about The Ring, where
yeah, yeah,
they figure the point of the movie is we gotta free Samara from the well, and at the
yeah,
very end, it's like, no, you weren't supposed to do that. And I think this movie could have had something where Jenna Ortega thinks she read the tapestries correct, and it's not till like the final act that she goes, "Oh no, I've made a mistake. I read this wrong." And
yeah,
they thought like we need to give the baby back to the parents or something. And it
yeah.
turns
It's like,
out that like because what the story basically says is yes, we were able to capture a unicorn, but unicorns are a vengeful species that if you hurt one of them, they will come and they will mess you
yeah,
up. And like the
yeah,
mom and dad are going to come and they're going to kill everyone here. And that's basically essentially what unfolds in the
yeah,
movie.
yeah,
But the unicorns are still essentially good and they just want their baby back. But wouldn't it have been an interesting twist if it was like, she's like, all we need to do is give them their baby back and they'll leave us
yeah,
alone. And then if they gave the baby back, but it's like, no, unicorns are actually evil. And if it's
yeah,
like, if that was
yeah,
the twist that like, they're just like, oh no, like we will,
yeah.
like, we're going to kill you guys anyway. And
Yeah, yeah,
if it
we
was,
gave him back, and now they're trying to kill all of us. That would have been,
yeah, or
yeah,
some twist that she thought she read the tapestries correctly, she thought she understood the lore, and then there's some next layer to it that she didn't understand. Even if it's not that they're evil, but if it's just something that just some kind of something that's unexpected. The plot of the film is the plot from the trailer. It's
yeah,
they hit a
yeah,
unicorn with their car, they bring the unicorn to this house, they find out the unicorn has magical properties that can heal people. This is all in the trailer. This is all in the trailer.
yeah,
And then the parents to the unicorn come to get the baby, and the parents are mean and scary and they kill people.
yeah,
And this
yeah,
is all in the trailer. And
yeah,
that's basically the movie.
yeah,
Now, I want to talk about this thing we talked about how the movie starts to stall a lot because
yeah,
I believe that it starts to stall as soon as Jenna Ortega starts to kind of do her research
yeah,
and they're toying around with what the drug can be and all of these different things because there's a thing here where since Jenna Ortega touched the unicorn horn, she is sort of spirit like psychokinetically or psychospiritually connected to not just the baby unicorn, but all of the unicorns. And she has this dream. The first night in the house that they're staying in, she has this dream where she's seeing through the eyes of either the mom or the dad that is leaving the cave, the unicorn cave, and galloping toward the house. But then
mhm,
it takes like another full day for the unicorn to show up at the house, and I just was kinda like, I don't know why it took so long f it just feels like if she had that dream that night that the unicorn was on its way and it's on
yeah,
the move, I
yeah,
was like and even that night, there's a scene where, Paul Rudd goes out to the hot tub where, the son is,
yeah,
and they hear the unicorn making a noise in the woods, like, very close to their house, and
yeah,
I just thought, "Well, shouldn't it show up?" I mean, what's stopping it from
yeah,
showing up?
yeah,
And it and the movie does this kind of repetitively where, like, even once
yeah,
the parent unicorns show up, they'll, like, kill a person, and then they'll disappear for
yeah.
15 or 20 minutes, and then
Yeah,
they'll
and that's the biggest problem with this movie is the pacing. Because in a monster movie, I mean, it's usually good to kind of like, you want the pacing to be slow and you want to make a build up. You know, you want to
Mhm,
build up the monster and it kind of like you see glimpses of it or whatever. And you want the build up to be for like half the movie.
mhm,
Usually around the midpoint, you can kind of, when the first kill happens, excuse me, when the monster kills the first person, or like really the first person, that's when you want things to start escalating and you want them to go faster and you want things to get a little bit crazy, kind of like in this movie, right?
mhm.
Like you can spend a lot of time building up and like get going, but once it starts, that's when you go. It's kind of like Shaun of the Dead.
Yeah,
Right, Shaun of the Dead is like a big buildup, and then pretty much the midpoint when they see all the zombies, everything starts happening and everything goes quickly and everything starts escalating and then it's fun. Like it's a lot of fun.
Yeah,
This was like
the movie that we talked about in the movie theater right after seeing it, it just reminds, there's a lot of like, I think, imagery from this film that reminds me of this, is Jurassic Park.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like the shadows of the unicorn on these like, on these kind of tubes, it's coming up and its mouth is
Yeah.
open. It reminds me of the approach. You
Oh
build
yeah,
up the
totally.
T-Rex, you know,
Totally.
you build up the anticipation of, you know, when John Hammond tells Sam Neill, we have a
Yeah.
T-Rex, and he's like, say that again, we have a
Yeah.
T-Rex, you know,
Yeah.
and you can see, you know, and they talk about raptors, like you bred raptors, you know, and they're
Yeah.
building these
Yeah.
things up. Once we do the T-Rex escaping from captivity scene, it's all gas, no brakes.
Oh
And
yeah.
that's
Yeah.
at about the midway of the movie. And
Mhm.
then the rest of the movie is one, you know, thrilling action sequence after another. This movie, at about the midway point, they're carrying the baby unicorn, they
Yeah.
package it up, and they're taking it away to their labs to kind of harvest what's left of its magical DNA. And
Yeah.
as they're doing that, the dad unicorn shows up outside of this kind of like, the tube reminded me of ET when they have like
Oh
a
yeah, totally. Totally.
the
Yeah.
tube that hooks up to the house that they take
Yeah.
ET in and out of. And they're the dad shows up, and it's a great sequence.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
thrusts his horn through one of the scientists and blows a hole through him. And again, kind of an alien reference where like at first the horn just kind of like sort
Yeah.
of makes his chest bleed, and then
Yeah.
the horn pushes again, kind of like a chest burster,
Yeah.
and it
Yep.
pops through this guy's chest. And all of the sequences in this movie where the unicorns kill people are great.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's they
Yeah,
were really
yeah.
funny and fun.
They're yeah. But literally it's like they have this really thrilling sequence where the unicorn comes in and causes all this mayhem and carnage, and they're the security team shooting at it, and it sort of runs away.
Yeah.
But then the movie just pauses for like 5 to
Well,
10 minutes, and
yeah, and we've got to mention because this part made us crack up pretty good.
yeah,
The unicorn kills the main guy, and you can see through the hole. You see Paul Rudd's face, which is in the trailer, which is really
yeah,
funny. But then, like, they go outside, and the unicorn steps on a guy's head.
yeah.
He's like, help me!" And then it's like pushes down, and the guy's head explodes.
Squishes his head like a grape.
It was so funny
But
because
again, like,
that was played that little second was played up so well.
oh, it's great.
But but
But
then right after that scene, it totally slows down.
But even in between killing the scientist and squishing the
Yeah.
head like a grape, I felt like it slowed down.
Yeah,
I
it's
felt
yeah,
like
yeah,
I felt like the momentum
yeah,
from once that scientist has that horn through his chest, it should be, we're running, we're screaming, we're getting chased, people are
yeah,
getting thrown around, people, you know, but like there was like a quick little action sequence, and then the unicorn kind of disappears and no one knows where it is. And
yeah,
things sort of slow down again. And
yeah,
Jenna Ortega's in the car and she's looking around, where is it? And then it reemerges, and
yeah.
that's when it steps on the guy's head and squashes his head like a grape.
That's right.
But I
Yeah,
still felt like, and then we have like a big pause. Like they get
yeah,
out of the car and they go back inside and they sort of barricade the door. And then we have a big pause where they're like, okay, well, the unicorns are out there, the parent unicorns are out there
yeah,
and they're mad. And we do this whole thing where the scientist, one of the living remaining scientists, cuts the horn off of the unicorn for
yeah,
the son, and he starts grinding up its powder and snorting it, and we're doing all this stuff in the house. And I kept thinking, why are the parent unicorns not just breaking through these windows? And
yeah,
like,
yeah,
what is stopping them? And it just was kind of like the movie, and it keeps doing this for the rest of the duration, where it'll just sort of pause the momentum of
yeah,
these
yeah,
rampaging parent unicorns so that the people in the house can have scenes and talk. And
yeah,
then they'll show back up and they'll cause more mayhem and they'll rampage and they'll kill a few more people and then they'll go away and there'll
yeah,
be a scene and people will talk. And I'm like, where are they?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
in
Because
Jurassic
they,
Park, it's like you have to keep moving, you have to keep
yeah,
running so that
yeah,
you can get to a space where you can stop and talk. But
yeah,
our characters in this movie are in the house. Like they
yeah.
are just, you know,
Yeah, they keep going in the house and then having their scenes and then going back out and then coming back in the like in the main entryway.
yeah.
And I think some of that was just the fact that their budget was low, but that's when you got to get creative. You know,
Mhm.
you've got to like, okay, can they get to a room that's, you know, like a panic room,
Yeah.
or can they, okay, we can't stay here very long. We've got to go to this room and go that way. But they never do. They just go to this. Once they're in the house, they're kind of safe until the end. But it would have been better if it would have just been that.
Yeah, you
Uh,
gotta be like it's like Jurassic Park, like
yeah,
that T-Rex gets loose, Alan Grant and the kids, they fall
yeah,
into so they're
yeah,
on they gotta get out of that car first. They
yep,
gotta deal with
yeah,
that whole situation. They get out of there, then they gotta like find a safe place to hunker down because they're
mhm,
out in the wild now. They
yeah,
in the morning they find, the herd of gallimimus that are running toward
yeah,
them, and they
yeah,
have to like outrun those, and the T-Rex shows up there, so they gotta get out of there. They
yeah,
gotta, get over the electric fence in time before the
yep,
electricity gets started. Like, and it's like they're on the move
yeah.
constantly from
They
one
are.
event. Our main characters, once the parents show up, they're just in this house, and the
Yeah,
parents just kind of keep showing up every 10 or 15 minutes. And
yeah,
I'm just kind of like, I don't know why they're not moving faster. Why they're
yeah.
not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they go back into the house after the first one. They go back into the house, and then like Richard Grant is like, "Okay, we're gonna go hunt the unicorn." So a search party comes, and they go into the woods with Paul Rudd, and that's when like a ton of their security gets killed, and then Paul Rudd somehow makes it back with Richard Grant, and then this is when Richard Grant gets killed,
Yeah.
which he's trying to like he's trying to like, oh, show me your secrets. And he's about to touch the horn. And then it totally stabs him right through the
Yeah, which
face,
is a good death.
which
Stab
is pretty good.
and a
Yeah.
lot of these deaths also are straight out of actual unicorn tapestries from, like, the
Yes.
Renaissance, which
Yeah.
is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
there's actual imagery of people being, like, stabbed through the mouth and through
Yeah.
the head with a unicorn horn or being
Yeah.
disemboweled by a uni so I
Yeah.
liked that. I liked
I
that
did like
imagery.
that. Yeah.
Again, it's just I wanted it to not constantly stall in
Yeah.
between these moments.
Yeah.
Also, there's a thing on this hunt that kind of bothered me. It's Paul Rudd goes out on this hunt, and Jenna Ortega is looking up more stuff about the unicorns, and she finds something out that we, the audience, aren't quite sure what it is, and she's texting him going, "You got to turn around, you got to come
Yeah.
back."
Yeah.
But what she finds out is that the unicorn can heal itself, which is something I feel like we already knew. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
the new information that she somehow found out is like, "Oh, it's not hurt. It's going to heal itself and it's going to hurt
Yeah.
you." And it's like, yeah, like of course
Yeah.
it's blood heals things. Like
Yeah.
I kind of wish that the thing that she found out and texted her dad, get out of there," was
Yeah.
something else, something that we
Yeah.
don't already know. Something that because it feels like that. It
Yeah.
feels like that kind of moment in a movie where it's like, oh
Well,
no.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yeah. Yeah. It could have been better. It draws you out from your home base, right? It tries to
Mhm.
whatever. But yeah, it was kind of like, yeah, that's not anything very crazy.
Right.
But it does kill everybody. Paul Rudd gets back, and then it slows down again.
It
And
There's even a scene here where like Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega run up into a bedroom upstairs and get chased by
yeah,
the mom unicorn upstairs. And then the mom unicorn, they have like a whole scene in this bedroom where Paul Rudd's just like having a heart to heart with his daughter. And the mom unicorn is just, I don't even know where. Like
yeah,
she's
yeah,
just kind of wandering around
yeah,
the upstairs of this house, and she knows where they are. Like she saw them go into this bedroom,
yeah,
and I have no idea why she's just sort of trotting around in other bedrooms. There's no reason for it other than for the movie to be like, hold on, Paul Rudd needs to talk to his daughter. And I
yeah,
just again kind of feel like this screenplay is, again, as much as I'm glad that A24 is giving first time writer directors a shot, someone needs to come in here and go, what's your monster doing right now? Where is
yeah,
it? It
yeah,
followed them up the stairs. Where did it go? And why did it go? Where,
yeah,
what's going on here? And it
yeah,
just sort of shows back up when the movie is ready for it to show back up again.
right,
And I just feel like it needs it. Why would it stop? It wouldn't. It would bust down that door. And but yeah,
mm,
Taya Leone gets a pretty good death here. She and her son are sort of hiding from it, and there's
yeah. And he
and
he keeps upping his drug use of the
yeah,
horn, which again, Will Poulter is pretty funny in this. And I guess as he's doing that, so he snorts it first, and then he starts he starts
starts smoking it out of a
smoking
pipe.
it like, yeah,
Yeah, which I
like,
thought was funny, like, that he's, like, kinda
yeah.
smoking it like a crack pipe or something,
Yeah,
and,
yeah, and
um
he's getting smarter and smarter because of all that, I guess.
but again, I want to see more. Like, if
Yeah.
the idea is
Yeah,
that as he
exactly.
takes more and more of this unicorn horn, get I wanna see more of him
Yeah. Yeah,
changing and develop, that
exactly.
like,
Yeah.
yes, this drug can cure cancer and it's a miracle drug, but too much of it does. I
Yeah.
wanna see, maybe will like, I wanna see him, like, transform somehow, or,
I know, yeah,
I
I
want
was
the
wondering if one of them was gonna change into a unicorn,
yeah.
like, or start transforming
Like,
somehow.
that might be a more interesting, a weirder ending if all of a sudden a horn starts sprouting out of his
Yeah,
skull
yeah.
and he, like,
Yeah.
falls down, and
Yeah,
he
like, it's
becomes
it gives you smarts, but if you take too much, yeah, it makes you it's not good, right? It's a
right,
punishment in a way,
right.
but
Because the movie does this thing where it's like he keeps taking more and more, and it's like, well,
yeah.
what's the result gonna be? And it's not. He just kinda gets killed like everyone else. Like, the
Yeah,
unicorn
it
just, and
does.
it's a good death.
It is
Like,
a good
so,
well, yeah, it
it
was yeah, basically the Taya Leone gets her bowels ripped out. Uh,
she just her guts everywhere, all over
yeah,
this billiards table, just
yeah,
yeah,
and Will Poulter has the chance to at least kill the unicorn for a minute, but he decides not to because he's still trying to catch it because he's
yeah.
addicted to this stuff.
Well, he
But
thinks if we can catch the mom and dad, we can breed them,
yeah.
and we can yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. And this is the moment that you talked about when Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega have their moment, and he opens the door as the mom unicorn is coming through, and then he runs away with the baby unicorn horn that they sawed off. So it tries to chase him. And then um I mean the climax, now it's daytime, which was pretty quick, like we
And
talked
again,
we
also,
talked
like,
about after the
like,
movie.
I keep talking about Jurassic Park too, but because now I'm gonna talk about Jurassic World. Like, one
Yeah.
of my least favorite parts about that movie is when Bryce Dallas Howard runs away from a T-Rex in high heels, and I'm like, what are we doing here? Like, what are the rules of how fast? Because there's
Yeah.
a scene here where Paul Rudd does a chase through the woods from he outruns this
Yeah.
and I'm like, no, like,
I know, yeah. Yeah.
you can't outrun a horse, and I
No.
would imagine a unicorn's even faster than a normal horse. Like,
Oh, yeah, it's gotta be.
yeah,
It's gotta
so
be. But,
yeah,
yeah, it is kind of it also, like, he somehow gets away, and
yeah,
then Will Poulter is gonna he's using Jenna Ortega as a bait, and then the dad unicorn comes down, it just kind of, like, falls over because she can tame them, which was set up, that was fine. And then the mom comes and tames him, and then, Paul Rudd, goes up and stabs Will Poulter with the unicorn horn, basically finally choosing his daughter over everything else. And then Will Poulter stabs him as well in the stomach.
with an arrow.
Yeah, with an arrow. And
Yeah.
then I think it's the mom unicorn gets up and kicks Will Poulter in the face.
Yeah, it gives him a nice
His
horse
back.
kick to
Yeah.
and, that's a nice that just completely just shatters his skull, rattles his
Yeah.
brain around in his and
And
that's again,
he's
like,
laying there the rest of the yeah, he's laying there the rest of the time, which is just pretty funny because
all
he's
the kills in this movie are
oh,
really
they're
great,
great.
and I just
They are
wish that
great.
they were more I just wish that the momentum in between them didn't constantly fall out
Yes.
and
Yeah, yeah,
constantly
yeah, yeah.
die. Yeah.
Totally,
I wish they
totally.
could find a way to keep the foot on the gas pedal and
Yeah.
just keep it
Just
driving, you
keep
know?
escalating. That's
Yeah.
what's good about this type of movie is, like,
Yeah.
you cannot let up on the gas. You've
Yeah.
got and if you really don't have that much of a budget, just, like, find ways to keep the unicorns out, but don't have it slow down so much because
Mhm.
that was my biggest problem is the slowing down
Mhm.
was too much, but then, I mean, Paul Rudd is dying, the unicorns wake up, and the horn is returned to the baby, and they somehow, like, bring Paul Rudd back to life, and he sees what Jenna Ortega sees, and he lives, and it's kind of like that, moment, like, "Oh, yay, everything is good," and
And something I don't think we mentioned is that, like, it's pretty obvious, but, like, uh, Jenna Ortega's mom, Paul Rudd's wife, is dead,
yes.
and
Yeah,
she
yeah, yeah, yeah.
died from, like, cancer or something, and
Yes.
that's why they also that's a layer to why they'd be
Yeah,
interested in this, but,
but it would have been better if that was played up even more, right?
yeah.
Like, I mean, I guess it kinda was, but
But again, that's so Disney Channel, right? Dead mom, like,
yeah,
it's
yeah,
so
yeah,
dead mom single, it's so Disney Channel,
yeah,
and, but yeah, that's also part of it is like, oh, when they touch the horn and they see this thing, they think, "Okay, that's where mom is, and that's where we're all gonna
yeah,
go," and so they feel
yeah,
good about the fact that when they
yeah,
die, they know they're gonna go somewhere safe, and
yeah,
then the police show up, and
Yeah,
obviously the unicorns go away. The police show up, and obviously, like, how do you explain to the police all of these
yeah,
horrifically murdered bodies and say unicorns killed them? The police put Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega in the back of a police cruiser because they're like, well, no one's going to believe that
yeah.
unicorns killed all these people. I don't know how to feel about the end of this movie.
I don't either.
They're driving down the street in this police cruiser, and the police officer looks in her rearview mirror and goes, "What the heck?" And the unicorns show up. The family of unicorns show up, and I also don't know why. Like, the parents are now white again. The
Yeah,
parents
yeah,
were black when their baby was in
yeah,
danger, and now that they have their baby back, they're all white. And I don't know what that
yeah.
means. I don't.
They were mad and
Yeah,
incomplete, I guess, and
racist,
then they're yeah, yeah, that's
racist.
kinda what I yeah. I
But
was like, "What?"
yeah, well, they're bad when they're black and they're good when they're white. I don't know, but
Yeah, I know, yeah.
the unicorns gallop up next to this car, and Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega kind of look at each other knowingly, like, here we go again, and
Yeah,
they buckle themselves in, and they like hold hands, and then the unicorns just ram their car off the
yeah,
road, and that's the end of the
yeah.
movie. But I was kind
Yep.
of like, even if they buckle themselves in, like, they could still die.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I couldn't tell if they were saying, like, "We're okay with dying because we know now that we can go and be with mom in this," or
I thought it was that the unicorn is gonna save them, so that they got saved and they got away, and they're
but I
just
still
gonna
I'm
leave
like,
now,
"Ok."
but
I just have questions about the, because I'm like,
yeah.
"So wait, did we kill this police officer?" Like,
Yeah, like, they
do
didn't have
we
anything to do with it, like,
yeah, like,
they're not bad.
are we killing this police officer? And then
Yeah.
are Paul Rudd and Jenna because still, even if the unicorns help them escape, when someone's gonna show up at that house and go, "Okay," but
Yeah.
and know
Yeah.
that they're I don't know how the end of this
Yeah,
movie
how do
resolves the storyline for.
oh, it
I feel
doesn't.
like
Yeah.
I feel like what would be better is, rather than the unicorns ramming the car off the road, all the police officer just needs to see the unicorns, and then she goes, "Oh, okay, they're real."
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
just sort of do like an ET ending where it's like, "Oh, if, like,
Yeah.
everybody sees that the kids are flying on their bikes, now everybody knows that the."
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know, like, where it's
Yeah,
like,
you coulda had something where the cop sees the actual unicorn, like, kill somebody and, like, "Okay, you guys just go," or something.
yeah,
You know,
something like
something way
that
better than
where,
that, but
because yeah, I the unicorn killing the cop, to me, doesn't get Paul Rudd and Jenna Ortega off the hook. It's like,
no, and it's also like, you just killed a cop that was just trying to do their
right.
job, like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so the movie just sort of ends
Yeah.
like they're like, "Oh, we're gonna get rammed off the road by these
Yep.
unicorns," and
Yeah.
then and I just was sort of like, I guess that's like a fun, energetic way to end your movie, but I don't see how that resolves the plot at all for these
Yeah.
characters.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
anywho, that's Death of a Unicorn. That's the ending of the film. Again, I would still say go see this movie
Yeah.
and go support independent,
Yeah.
new original movies, and make up your own mind. We had fun watching this
Yeah.
movie. There's lots of
Yeah.
things to dig into,
Well, and
but
I think for this one, I feel like my scores are gonna be higher than yours because
yeah.
I actually when the I was looking forward to it for the trailer, and then when all the reviews came out and it was pretty middle of the road, I was like, "Oh," I mean, even to you, I was like, "Should we go see it? I don't know." And then obviously, like, yes, we should. So my expectations were so low.
Mhm.
So I had a great time. And again, if everybody comes in, like, go see this movie, have low expectations,
And
and you'll
maybe just
probably have a
have
better time.
maybe if you just have the idea, I'm watching a rated R Disney Channel movie,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
like, that's fun.
Yeah,
That's fun. Like, that's
exactly.
not a bad concept, you know?
No, no.
So it's Halloween Town, but there's really gruesome murders in it.
Exactly.
Okay, so if this is your first time watching an episode of The Oner, we give scores for our films out of 10, 10 being the best, 1 being the worst. We give scores on a technical scale. So technically, how was the film put together, constructed, the writing, the acting, the craft of the film, the ending of the movie. Did they stick the landing? The rewatchability of the movie. Would you go back to this film? Do you think that there's more to see on a rewatch? Um, your the cultural impact of the film, and your subjective score. So Kramer, what's your technical score for A24's Death of a Unicorn?
I think I so I'm giving it a 6.5.
Okay.
And I think because the pacing issues,
Mhm.
everything's slowed down. That takes out a lot. And the CGI unicorns didn't look great, but I forgave that because the movie was fun. But
Yeah.
I also like in thinking of the technical part of it, it was not the best.
Sure.
But they did look good. So 6.5. Would you give it?
I gave it a 6.
Yeah.
Very similar, where I just feel like this movie has a lot more potential.
Yes.
I feel like it's a concept that I just wanted the weirdness turned up. I wanted the gas pedal to be on once mommy and daddy unicorn show up. And I just wanted the movie to just drive a little bit more. So I feel like the back half had a lot of problems. And I feel like overall the plot was just too straightforward, but there's enough to it. All that being said, there's enough to enjoy that it's not like a 4 or a 3 technically.
Oh yeah.
So how about the ending for this film?
The ending, oh man, the ending I gave it a 7. Because it did wrap up everything, but it's probably being generous, just that it all kind of came together. And I thought, I mean, the ending, I'm taking all the kills into account as well, because it's the end of the characters. So, but the actual ending, I thought it was fine. It worked well. So 7.
I gave it a 5. I just wanted I wanted something unexpected. I wanted like I said, I'm not sure how that last moment, what that's supposed to do for those characters. I'm kind of like, I don't know, unicorns. I'm not sure you're helping. Like I think you're just like making things worse here.
No, I think you're right. I need to give it a 6. I'm being too generous on that one, but yeah, you're right.
And rewatchability, would you come back to this film?
Yeah, rewatchability, I gave a 6 because I am afraid though. Like I had such a fun experience that if I rewatched it, it probably wouldn't be as good, because now I know what it is, and I know what to expect, so it probably wouldn't be as good. But I think 6, I would be fine rewatching it.
I gave it a 5. I feel the same way. I would be fine rewatching it, but I'm not like going to be seeking out multiple viewings of this film. I just kind of don't think that there's enough there for me to like sometimes I don't really like a movie, but I'm like, I'm gonna have to come back to this one,
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to come back and give this another shot. And this one's a movie where I'm just like, I think I got it on the first watch, and I just don't think that there's much
what
else
you see
there.
is what you get.
Yeah.
That's pretty much,
cultural impact of this film.
Yeah, cultural impact, I gave a 4. It's not doing great at the box office, and I also think a lot of people, this won't inspire a ton of people in ways that like Jurassic Park did, right? So I think it's a fun movie, but it's going to be kind of in with the rest of them, not going to stick out too much.
That's what I had it at as well, as a 4. I think that this is honestly one of the less interesting releases from A24 I've ever seen, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of like I'd like to see a version of this movie directed by the Daniels, or
that would be so good.
Yeah, just something.
Daniels would do some interesting stuff with this.
Yeah, because and again, I want more concepts like this to get greenlit, but I don't think that this movie's going to be the movie that is like, that's why you should invest in movies like that.
Yeah.
And your subjective score?
My subjective score, I gave a 7 because I did have a lot of fun. It was really the unicorn deaths were the best part, and they had some really funny ones. They had some really crazy ones. So I had a really good time with it.
Yeah.
But if I were to keep watching it, would probably go down, but I enjoyed it. So I gave it a 7.
I gave it a 5. It's a very middle. There's enough to enjoy for me. But I also just was kind of like, every time I would find myself like getting into it or enjoying it, there would be a moment. It was like, it was like 6s. Like they were like, every good moment felt like it was followed by a moment that I just took the wind out of it for me. But I would still encourage the audience to watch this, make up their own mind. Let us know what you think about Death of a Unicorn. And that's going to do it. Leave a comment, like, share, subscribe. We will see you on the next one.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.